开始。
应该开始。
OK，
OK 吗？
好的，可以，对。
Okay, folks, let's get started. Big welcome to you all. CIW, my name is Glenn Hillman. I'm the director here of the Australian Centre on China and the World, and it's my great pleasure to introduce to you our special guest this evening, Professor Zhou Qi, who is visiting us from Beijing as a visiting fellow. Professor Zhou is the director of the Institute of Global Governance and Development, which is a prominent think tank at Renmin University in Beijing. And her fields of research are US politics and foreign policies, international relations, but specifically China-US relations. Professor Zhou has a PhD from the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University in the US, and she did her BA and MA at Fudan University in Shanghai. Previously, Professor Zhou was a senior researcher, Department of American Politics at the Institute of American Studies within the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, which I'm sure everyone here knows is China's biggest think tank. So her research on foreign policy, on China-US relations, and on US politics has been at the intersections of academic research and policy making. Professor Zhou has also spent quite a bit of time in the US, 7 years, is that right?
Yes.
Altogether?
1 year and a half in Italy.
And a year and a half in Italy. Oh, okay. You can tell us more about that later.
Altogether, eight years and a half.
8.5 years abroad. And her time in the US was split between a visiting professorship at Pomona College, and you're also twice a visitor at Harvard. Okay. And also a visiting fellow at Brookings. All right, so lots of connections to US institutions as well, a lot of experience in the US. You've published over 12 books and nearly 300 articles, which is quite formidable, and 6 of your books have received prizes. Again, quite a formidable record. We are really pleased to welcome you here to Australia to share your insights on US-China policy and Sino-US relations since Trump and since Trump 1.0. Is that right? Since Trump 1.0.
Yes.
Okay. We look forward to that. And Professor Zhou's been with us for a few days, and she told me just now that before she came to Australia, she was told to expect, as her first visit here, to expect one giant village. I think that's probably a fair description of Canberra. But Professor Zhou has found that Australia's much more than a big village, so you can share your impressions with us during question time. We have an hour and a half, and so generally for these seminars, our speakers will share their ideas, make a presentation for about half the time, about 45 minutes.
Yes, I will.
And then we'll have about 45 minutes for Q&A. After that, we have just as many people online as are joining us here in person. And so for those of you online, welcome. You can send questions later, not during the talk, after the presentation. You can put questions you have into the chat function on Zoom. We can't promise we'll get to all of the questions, but we will do our best. So big welcome to Professor Zhou.
Thank
you. And
thank you very much, Professor Ben, for your warmly recommendation and introduction. My name is Zhou Qi, and since we have only 40 or 45 minutes, my lecture could be much longer than this, so I have the cut off just I mean about half of age, and that you know the critical point of view in my lecture. Oh, should I do this? Oh, it is. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you know the U.S.-China policy during the Trump first term. Trump's anti-globalization and the American first approach for addressing America's current problems has resulted in dramatic change in U.S. domestic and foreign policies, as well as China policy. The first one is the U.S. basic judgment on China's China has undergone major changes. Maybe you have read the two important reports. One is in December 2017, entitled National Security Strategy of the United States. The second one is you know, published in 2018, January, the National Defense Strategy of the United States. Both reports labeled China and Russia revisionist competitors. You know, it says China will continue its military mobilization program, aiming to pursue regional hegemony in Indo-Pacific in the near term, expel the United States and achieve global domestic in the future, dominance in the future. And then, you know, someone, as I told, Michael Swin, working in the, you know, in a think tank in the United States, he compared the two American national security strategy in Obama administration and that one under Trump administration. He says that in 2015 report, the you know it explicitly stated that the United States welcomes the rise of a stable, peaceful, and prosperous China. We seek to establish a constructive relationship with China. While there will be competition, we do not believe that a confrontation is inevitable. And later, from June to July 2020, National Security Advisor, FBI Director, and Attorney General and the Secretary of State, Pompeo systematically delivered a series of anti-China speeches publicly. They try to separate the Chinese people from the Chinese Communist Party, attacking China's socialist system and its top leadership. Retorted and negated the long-standing China's policies of successive U.S. administrations, portraying China as a direct threat to the Western political systems, lifestyles, and fundamental values. Pompeo states the ultimate ambition of China rulers is not to trade with the United States, but to invade it. And China cannot be treated as a normal country. The second part is Trump took trade war as a starting point to confront China. On March 4th, 27, the President 27 trade policy agenda to Congress says, since 2000, the final year before China joined the WTO, US GDP growth has slowed down. The trade deficit has widened. Job growth has decreased, and manufacturing employment has declined. And they reached the conclusion that while the current global trade system had benefited China, it had not delivered the same benefit to the United States since 2000. In the early morning of April 4th, 2018, the US government released a list of targeted goods, imposing about 25% tariff on over 1,000 Chinese products was 50 billion American dollars. The trade statement between the two sides lasted until December 2018. On January 15, 2020, China and the US signed the Phase 1 economic and trade agreement. However, a month later, the COVID-19 pandemic broke out. Despite China's best efforts to import American products, the pandemic caused a significant decline in economic growth, making imports more difficult for China. The agreement was actually unable to be implemented. Part 3, on the brink of abandoning the one China policy towards Taiwan. It is always China's diplomatic principle that Taiwan is part of China. An article of the Washington Post in January 15, 2020 documents comments that Trump is the most pro-Taiwan president in American policy history. By June, the Trump administration announced more than $1 billion American arms sales to Taiwan. Since 2018, the US has conducted increased military activities in Taiwan Strait and increased the frequency and the publicity of the US rival transitions toward the Taiwan Strait, a practice previously avoided by US government. Trump also significantly increased the arms sales to Taiwan. Meantime, in years during his term, several American legislations were passed. You may look at the names of them. Thus, the Trump administration's Taiwan policy shows the following characteristics. The Trump administration's Taiwan policy represents a departure from the traditional US policy towards Taiwan since the end of the Cold War. We may do a composition a little bit here. President Clinton publicly declared the 3 no's commitment to Taiwan. In 1998, the first, no support of Taiwanese independence, no support for one Taiwan, one China, one Taiwan, or 2 Chinas, and no support for Taiwan's membership in the international organization requiring membership by sovereign states. In December 2003, President Bush declared that Taiwanese leader Chen Shui-bian's words and actions indicate that he may be intent to make a unilateral decision to alter the state law, which we oppose. Then Obama administration consistently sought to reassure Beijing that the US policy was not to contain China, but Trump administration has never made such assurances. Now, however, Trump's American First doctrine has limited its motivation to intervene overseas in the name of supporting the global democracy in its foreign policy. And therefore, he is less willing to take military risks and the excuse of this defending the domestic Taiwan. He once unexpectedly asked his assistants in a policy meeting, "What do we gain from protecting Taiwan?" It surprised the other people in the meeting. Part 4, taking sides. What is that? On China Sea policy. Daniel Russell, maybe you have heard about that, about him. Right now, at that time he was a U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia and Pacific Affairs. Testified at the House Housing on February 5th, 2014. His words show that the U.S. stance on the South China Sea issue has shifted in the following ways. First, the U.S. stated to take a side on the territorial sovereignty claims. China's claims are not consistent with international law and therefore lack legitimacy. However, he has not yet taken a position on whether other countries' claims are in accordance with international law. Second, China's claim on the South China Sea undermined the long-held U.S. principle of freedom of international navigation. On July 13, 2020, Secretary of State Pompeo delivered the statement, U.S. position on maritime claims in South China Sea. It explicitly declared China's 9-line claim to be completely illegal. This statement signaled a fundamental shift in the U.S. previous stance of not taking sides on the South China Sea sovereignty issue. Part 5, high-tech decoupling policy towards China. This is quite new. The Trump administration treats the high-tech field as a key area that determines the success of affiliate and competition among competition among contemporary major powers. The U.S. criticized that with state support, China could potentially gain an advantage on high-tech development, and the United States must proactively prevent it. In the first Trump administration, several hundred Chinese companies were put on the U.S. entity list, also called a blacklist. The Trump administration has imposed strict restrictions on visiting scientists and students studying in the United States. At a secret meeting, another evidence. At a secret meeting of Five Eyes intelligence agencies in July 2018, participating nations reached agreement on a strategy to contain Huawei, one of the Chinese outstanding high-tech companies. Since then, the Trump administration has steadily pressured its allies to exclude Huawei from the West's next generation communications network. Although Trump's defeat in 2020 election temporarily stopped the U.S. government from taking more extreme measures against China, the policy legacy left by Trump has accumulated and taken place. Then we can have we take a look of what Biden administration has done in China policy. First, strategic positioning of China. President Biden fully continued Trump's strategic positioning of China. The Biden's National Security Secretary of Sport of the United States says that says the same thing like Trump's administration. Even as Russia taken new military action against the Ukraine and the United States in uniting NATO countries to confront Russia, China is still considered the most serious long-term challenge facing the international order. The second one is continue the trade war against China. Biden administration reviewed U.S. tariff policies for more than a year and a half. At that time, I remember we waited for quite a long time. The first half year they didn't reach the decision, but 1 year and a half finally in September 2022, the decision to maintain the tariffs imposed on China was announced. Third, intensified the decoupling from China's high-tech field. Comprehensive export control measures were announced by the U.S. Department of Commerce on October 7th on export. It's interesting to notice that, including prohibiting the U.S. companies from selling high-tech chips to Chinese companies, prohibiting the sales of equipment used to produce these high-tech chips or other products that can be used to produce cheap manufacturing equipment, and even prohibiting the sale of electronic design automation, EDA, used to design high-end chips. Due to the restrictions, Dutch company ASML cannot export its sample to China, and China therefore is so far unable to produce its own high-tech chips, because ASML is the only company which can do it. In the meantime, the U.S. ban on exporting high-tech chips made by any country to China. And the Biden administration, the policy was called small yard with high wall, described by the administration. And export, the CSIS commented that the American approach of restricting China's access to key technologies is like marathon. In order to win, the U.S. must either run faster or trip China. But the Biden administration's approach now is doing both, running faster and at the same time tripping China. In order to achieve the goal of decoupling from China's technology, the Biden administration also made efforts to establish technology democracy alliance. The goal is to establish rules and norms for the use of technology to prevent technological authoritarian countries from dominating global technology. What authoritarian countries here mean, you may figure it out. The third one, mobilize allies and partners to jointly confront China. Biden's approach differs significantly from Trump's. The key concept embedded in foreign policy is the network of alliances and partnership. It's sought to build value-based international alliance and mobilize allies and partners to jointly confront China. To this end, the Biden administration has established a number of a small group aimed at achieving special goals. Four such groups were mentioned by Blinken: the Quad, the AUKUS, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, and the newly established the quasi-military alliance between Japan, US, Japan, and South Korea. Fourth, building bridge between the Indo-Pacific Alliance and the European Union. In exchange for US support for Ukraine, the NATO summits communique completely adopted the US narrative regarding China. I will not repeat it. Fifth, Taiwan policy is on the verge of breaching the One China principle. You maybe all know that American House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan on October 2022. And actually before that visit, for many times, at least 4 times, Biden, President Biden said that something like if there is a conflict in the Taiwan Strait, we will stand by Taiwan, something like that. But his assistants immediately, stand out to explain that you don't have to take it seriously. What the U.S. policy is, you may look at our documents. Okay. Here is, I think you just look at it. I don't have to read. 6, Biden's administration tried to adopt a big active attitude towards Taiwan in the end. So you may ask why, to the end of Biden administration, the relations between the 2 countries, the intention of the intentions between the 2 countries ease after November 2023 summit. The explanation is that in January 2023, Secretary of State Blinken, told that the United States must maintain a certain degree of stability in the U.S.-China relationship in order to ensure that competition does not escalate into conflict. Therefore, the 2 countries need to strengthen dialogue and the communication channels and do their utmost to resolve their differences, or at least clarify what those differences are to avoid misunderstandings of each other's intentions. So there is a concept indefinite coexistence. This concept is very important for the change of the U.S. policy toward China a little bit. That is the need to maintain open channels of communication for long-term coexistence and ensuring that competition does not escalate into conflict. These considerations are then the fundamental ones for the Biden administration to improve its relations with China. Now we come to the 2.1, the policy of Trump administration's policy and its impact on China policy and its impact on Sino-US relations. The first one is Trump definitely continued to view China as the biggest competitor. We just look at some related things, like the U.S. budget increased for Department of Defense and Commerce. primarily aimed at the military countering and the economically suppressing China. And the second, Trump administration added more Chinese companies and organizations to the entity list. And Trump launched a new tariff war with China. Then we come to August 12, 2025. The Sino-US Geneva economic and trade talks, reached an agreement and announced a joint statement recognizing that the importance of bilateral economic and trade relations to the two countries and the global economy. The US side pledged to eliminate 91 of the tariffs and to amend the 34% reciprocal tariffs imposed on Chinese goods, and will suspend 24% of these tariffs for 90 days, and retaining the remaining 10%. But just as what I talked to the groups before this lecture, actually Chinese official told me that the current trade tariff on China is higher than the 10%. It's about 30 or 34%. Now, China's new export ban on rare materials. I have to emphasize that. Why the US decide to make such a compromise? One measure that China has taken is China has imposed, has done export ban on raw materials that could seriously disrupt the supply chain of the US defense industrial base. I don't know whether you have noticed that. And this influence weapon systems in such a way, weapon systems affected by the ban include 500 for the Navy, 267 for the Army, almost 200 for the Air Force, 113 for the Marine Corps. So if we mentioned rare earth export controls, the data can be seen that rare earths are needed in every aspect of the US military industry chain. Right now, the US military complain that an F-35 fighter jet requires 417 kilograms of the rare earth. A nuclear submarine uses 4 tons. Then Trump, Trump said several days ago that China must have to sell the rare earth to the United States. Otherwise, I will impose 200 tariff rate on China's export to US. So it's really made his act to China. Me angry to China. And finally, I'd like to remind you another side of the tariff imposing of the United States. The Trump administration's tariff increase policy is designed to complement domestic tax cuts in order to reduce the fiscal deficit and the US debt. The substantial tariff increase is intended to offset the reduction in government revenue resulting from domestic tax cuts, so tariff revenue. And the tariff increase isn't just targeted at China. All countries have included, regardless they have intimate relations with US or not. That is my